I found a hidden camera in my living room, placed by my own brother. The smoke detector had been blinking red for 3 days. I noticed it Tuesday morning while rushing to work, that tiny crimson pulse in the corner of my living room ceiling. By Thursday, it had become an itch I couldn't scratch, a persistent wrongness that nagged at me through spreadsheets and conference calls. Smoke detectors blinked green when they were functioning properly. Red meant malfunction, or low battery, or something. Friday evening, I finally dragged the ladder from the garage. My wife Emma was at her book club, and the house felt too quiet as I climbed toward the device. The metal rungs creaked under my weight. When I reached the detector, I twisted it counterclockwise, expecting it to resist. Instead, it came away easily, too easily, revealing not the standard yellow battery compartment, but a small black lens staring back at me like an unblinking eye. My hands went numb. I almost dropped the device. Almost. Instead, I held it at arm's length, this smoke detector that wasn't a smoke detector, and felt my reality tilt sideways. The camera was professional grade, tiny, the kind you'd see in spy movies, the kind that cost real money. Someone had been watching us. The thought arrived with sickening clarity. Someone had installed this, had access to our home, had been observing Emma and me in our most private moments. My mind raced through possibilities: a previous owner, a deranged stalker, our landlord. Then I saw it. Scratched into the plastic backing, barely visible, TB04. TB, Thomas Barrett, my brother. The ladder seemed to sway beneath me, though I knew it was steady. Thomas lived 20 minutes away in a downtown loft. He visited every few weeks, always with some excuse, borrowing tools, dropping off leftovers, claiming he was in the neighborhood. He had a key. For emergencies, I'd told Emma when I gave it to him last year. I descended the ladder in a daze, the camera clutched in my trembling hand. The footage was worse than I imagined. Thomas's loft was sleek and modern, all exposed brick and industrial lighting. He answered the door in running clothes, sweat darkening his gray shirt, looking confused by my unannounced visit. "Alex, what's wrong? You look—" I held up the camera. His face did something complicated, surprise melting into recognition, melting into something I couldn't quite name. Not quite fear, not quite guilt. Something in between. "Can I come in?" My voice sounded strange, tight. He stepped aside. The loft was exactly as I remembered: minimalist furniture, expensive electronics, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. But now I noticed other things. The bank of monitors on his desk, currently dark. The equipment rack in the corner, professional surveillance gear that must have cost thousands. "How long?" I asked. Thomas closed the door, locked it. "Alex, listen. How long have you been watching us?" He moved to the kitchen island, gripped its edge. 8 months. 8 months. Emma and I had lived in that house for 2 years, but 8 months ago was when. "After the break-in," Thomas said, reading my expression. "When that guy tried to get in through your bedroom window. You were terrified, both of you." "I wanted to help!" The break-in, a drunk college kid as it turned out, trying the wrong house. The police had caught him stumbling through our neighbor's yard an hour later. But yes, Emma hadn't slept well for weeks afterward. We'd installed better locks, a security system we barely used because we kept forgetting the code. "So you installed cameras?" I said flatly. Without asking. "I was protecting you." "In our living room?" The living room has the best sightlines to the front door and the hallway. If anyone broke in, you could have asked, Thomas. Would you have said yes? He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw something desperate in his eyes. You would have said no. You would have said you were fine, that you didn't need help, that the security system was enough. But Emma was having panic attacks. You were waking up at every sound. I couldn't just do nothing. The logic was almost sound. Almost. Except, show me, I said. What? Show me the footage. Thomas's jaw tightened. Alex, show me, or I'm calling the police. For a long moment, we stood there in his expensive loft, brothers separated by more than the kitchen island. Finally, he moved to his desk, woke up the monitors. His fingers flew across the keyboard. The screen filled with a grid of camera feeds. I counted them. 12. There's only one camera in the living room, I said slowly. Thomas didn't look at me. I wanted to be thorough. I stepped closer. The feeds showed different angles of my house. Living room, kitchen, front hallway, back hallway, the garage, the home office where Emma did her graphic design work, our bedroom. Jesus Christ, I whispered. It's not what you think. You put a camera in our bedroom? For safety. If someone broke in while you were sleeping. I grabbed his shoulder, spun him around. Where else, Thomas? Where else did you put cameras? He jerked away from me. Nowhere inappropriate. I'm not some pervert. I'm trying to protect you. But his eyes slid away when he said it, and I knew he was lying. I found the additional cameras on my own. The bathroom took me 20 minutes. Thomas had hidden it in the ventilation fan, angled toward the shower. When I pulled it free, my hands were shaking so badly I nearly crushed it. Emma came home while I was checking the guest bedroom. She found me standing on a chair, examining the smoke detector that was actually a smoke detector, tears streaming down my face. Alex, baby, what's wrong? I told her everything. She sat on the bed, silent, her face going through the same complicated emotions I'd experienced. Shock, disbelief, violation, then anger, hot and bright. He watched us in the bathroom? He says it was for safety. Safety? Her voice cracked. Alex, he's been watching us have sex. He's been watching me shower, change clothes. She pressed her hands to her mouth, and I saw the moment it truly hit her. The scope of the invasion, the betrayal. I sat beside her, put my arm around her shoulders. She was trembling. We need to call the police, she said. I know. Why didn't you already call them? I didn't have a good answer. Because he was my brother? Because some part of me wanted to believe his story about protection? Because the footage might show things we didn't want the police to see? I'll call them now, I said. Emma grabbed my wrist. Wait, did you see the footage? Some of it, just the live feeds. We need to see what he recorded, all of it. Emma, what if there's something on there? What if he's been, I don't know, sharing it online or... Her breath hitched. We need to know the full extent of this before the police get involved and it becomes evidence we can't access. She was right. As much as I didn't want to watch hours of surveillance footage of our private lives, we needed to know what we were dealing with. We went back to Thomas's loft. He was waiting for us. He'd changed clothes, cleaned up, and there was a bottle of whiskey on the counter with 3 glasses. I knew you'd come back, he said. Emma's voice was ice. Show us everything. Thomas looked at me, some silent plea in his eyes, but I just nodded toward the monitors. He sat at his desk and began pulling up files. The archive was extensive, months of footage, organized by room and date. I pulled up a chair beside him, Emma standing behind us, her hand tight on my shoulder. Start with the living room, I said. The beginning. Thomas clicked, and the monitor filled with grainy nighttime footage. The timestamp read 8 months ago, the day after the attempted break-in. The camera showed our empty living room, the shadows from the streetlight outside creating patterns on the floor. See? Thomas said. Nothing happens. For weeks, nothing happens. I'd check the feeds every day, just making sure you were safe. We fast-forwarded through hours of nothing. Emma and I moving through our daily routines, eating dinner on the couch, watching TV, reading, the mundane reality of our lives viewed from above like we were specimens in a terrarium. This is already enough to convict you, Emma said quietly. You know that, right? Thomas's shoulders hunched. I know. Then why? I asked. Why risk everything? Your career, your freedom, our relationship? Why? He was quiet for so long, I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, because I'm supposed to protect you. That's not an answer. It is, though. He turned to face me, and his eyes were red. You've always needed protecting, Alex. Ever since we were kids. Remember when Danny Morrison tried to shake you down for lunch money in 8th grade? I broke his nose. Remember when you failed your driver's test 3 times? I taught you to drive in empty parking lots every weekend until you got it. Remember when Dad died and you couldn't even get out of bed? I handled everything. The funeral, the estate, the relatives. I've always been the one keeping you safe. The words hung in the air between us. I'm not 13 anymore, I said. No, but you still need me. You just don't want to admit it. Emma's grip on my shoulder tightened. This isn't protection, Thomas. This is control. He flinched like she'd slapped him. I never tried to control. Show us the bedroom footage, Emma interrupted. Thomas's face went pale. There's nothing. Show us. His hand trembled as he navigated to another folder. Clicked. The bedroom appeared on screen, and this angle was different, positioned to capture the entire room, including the bed. We watched ourselves sleep. For the first few clips, that was all it was. Just Emma and me sleeping, occasionally shifting, utterly unaware we were being observed. Then Thomas fast-forwarded to a clip marked with a red flag. What's that? I asked. I categorized certain events, he said quietly, for efficiency. What kind of events? He didn't answer, just hit play. On screen, Emma and I were arguing. I couldn't hear the audio. The cameras didn't have microphones, Thomas claimed. But I recognized the fight. 3 months ago, about her mother coming to visit. I'd said something thoughtless, she'd gotten upset, and it had escalated. The video showed me shouting, gesturing, Emma in tears, me storming out of the room. Why did you flag this? Emma asked. Thomas's voice was barely a whisper. I thought he might hurt you. What? You were crying, and he was yelling, and I thought, I needed to know if what? My voice was too loud in the quiet loft. If I was abusing my wife? Jesus, Thomas, is that what you thought? I didn't know. I couldn't hear what you were saying. I just saw you yelling and her crying, and I needed to make sure. Did you call the police? Emma demanded. If you really thought I was being abused, did you call someone? Thomas said nothing. You didn't call anyone, Emma continued, because you didn't actually think he was hurting me. You were just watching. You wanted to watch. That's not true. Show us the rest of the flagged videos. Thomas's hand hovered over the mouse. Emma, please. Now. There were 37 flagged videos. We watched them all. Most were arguments, moments of tension or sadness captured and catalogued, but some were different, intimate moments. Emma and me kissing on the couch, moving toward the bedroom. The camera angles capturing everything. You sick fuck, Emma breathed. I didn't watch those, Thomas said quickly. I flagged them so I could skip them. I gave you privacy for those moments. You recorded them. For completeness. There is no good explanation for this. Emma was shouting now. You violated us. You invaded every inch of our privacy. You watched us sleep and fight and make love and shower and exist, and you think you can justify it by claiming it was for our protection? Thomas stood abruptly, nearly knocking over his chair. I was trying to help. After Dad died, after everything we went through, I swore I'd never let anything happen to you, Alex. Never again. And when that guy tried to break in, when I saw how scared you both were, I couldn't just do nothing. I had to know you were safe. This isn't safe, I said quietly. This is surveillance. This is obsession. I'm your brother. You're a criminal. The word landed like a physical blow. Thomas staggered back, his face crumpling. We're calling the police, Emma said. Right now. Wait. I held up a hand. Something was nagging at me, some discrepancy I couldn't quite name. I looked at the monitor, at the grid of camera feeds. Thomas, how many cameras did you say you installed? 12. In the living room, kitchen, hallways, office, bedroom, bathroom. I counted on my fingers. 11. What's the 12th camera? Thomas went very still. Thomas. Where's the 12th camera? Emma's hand tightened on my shoulder. She'd done the math too. Thomas sat back down slowly. His fingers moved across the keyboard. A new feed appeared on the monitor. It showed a bedroom, but not ours. This one had pale yellow walls, a 4-poster bed, a vintage vanity in the corner. I recognized it immediately. That's our guest bedroom, Emma said, but the angle is wrong. That's not from the smoke detector. No, Thomas said. It's from the alarm clock. My sister-in-law Janet used that room when she visited, Emma's sister. She'd stayed with us for a week last month while her apartment was being fumigated. Oh my God, Emma whispered. I felt sick. Did you watch her? I needed to make sure she was safe too. She's not your sister. She's not your responsibility. You don't get to... I couldn't finish the sentence. The enormity of it was too much. How long has that camera been there? Emma demanded. Thomas's silence was answer enough. Since before Janet visited, I said. You knew she was coming. You installed it specifically to watch her. Not just her. You have other guests sometimes. I needed to monitor. Emma lunged for him, and I barely caught her in time. She was screaming, wordless rage, and Thomas shrank back in his chair. We're leaving, I said, pulling Emma toward the door. We're going straight to the police, and if you try to delete any of this footage, I swear to God... I won't, Thomas said. He looked shattered, broken. I won't delete anything. I never meant... I was just trying to protect you. No, I said. You were trying to possess us. We left him there in his loft, surrounded by his monitors and his cameras and his carefully organized violations. The police investigation took 3 months. They found everything. Not just the cameras in our house, but the ones Thomas had installed in our previous apartment. The ones in our parents' old house, where he still had a key. The sophisticated network he'd built. The storage servers. The redundant backups. They found folders organized by name. Emma, me, Janet, our friends who'd visited, our neighbors whose houses he'd somehow accessed. The scope of his surveillance was staggering. Dozens of people, hundreds of cameras, years of footage. Some dating back to when we were in college, hidden cameras in the apartment we'd shared before Dad died. Thomas claimed the same thing in every interview. He was protecting us. Protecting everyone. Making sure we were safe. The psychiatrist's report used different words. Obsessive-compulsive disorder with paranoid features. Pathological need for control stemming from childhood trauma. Inability to process loss in healthy ways. Thomas pled guilty to 47 counts of unlawful surveillance. The prosecutor said he'd serve 5 to 7 years. Emma and I moved 3 weeks after the arrest. New house, new city, fresh start. We changed our phone numbers, our email addresses, our routines. We had the new place swept for cameras by a professional security firm. They found nothing, but Emma still checks the smoke detectors monthly. Janet is in therapy. So are we. The violation of privacy, the betrayal of trust. It's not something you just get over. Some days are better than others. I haven't spoken to Thomas since that night in his loft. He writes letters sometimes, from prison. Long, rambling letters about how he misses me, how he never meant to hurt anyone, how he still believes he was doing the right thing. I don't read them anymore. 6 months after the trial, I received a package. No return address. Inside was a thumb drive and a note in Thomas's handwriting. You need to see this. I should have thrown it away. Should have taken it straight to the police. But something made me hesitate. I took it to a friend who works in IT security, had him check it for viruses, malware, anything malicious. Clean, he said. Just video files. I watched them alone in my car, parked in an empty lot. The footage was from 8 years ago. Our parents' house. The angles showed the home office where Dad spent his final months, too sick to work, but too stubborn to stop trying. The timestamp was the day before he died. On screen, Dad sat at his desk, head in his hands. The video was grainy, but I could see he was crying. Then Thomas entered the frame. Younger, thinner, his face uncertain. He sat beside Dad, put his arm around him. They talked for a long time. I couldn't hear the words, but I could see the gestures, the expressions. Dad showing Thomas documents, bank statements, insurance policies, passwords, the practical matters of death. Then Dad pulled Thomas close, said something directly into his ear, and Thomas's face. I'd never seen my brother cry like that. Deep, wrenching sobs that shook his whole body. Dad held him, comforting him, and after a while, Thomas nodded. Some agreement passing between them. The video ended there. I sat in my car for an hour, trying to understand what I'd seen. Then I drove to the prison. The visiting room smelled like disinfectant and despair. Thomas looked smaller than I remembered, his face hollowed out by incarceration and guilt. We sat across from each other, a scratched plastic barrier between us. You watched it, he said. It wasn't a question. What did Dad say to you? Thomas's hands were folded on the table, fingers interlaced so tightly his knuckles were white. He said he was worried about you, that you'd never been good at taking care of yourself, that you'd need someone to watch over you after he was gone. I felt something crack inside my chest. He asked me to look after you, Thomas continued, to make sure you were okay, and I said I would. I promised him. He didn't mean like that, Thomas. He didn't mean... I know. His voice broke. I know he didn't mean for me to install cameras and spy on you and everyone else. I know it spiraled into something sick. But Alex, when I gave him that promise, it meant everything. It was the last conversation we had, the last thing he asked of me, and I thought... He swallowed hard. I thought if I could just keep you safe, if I could prevent anything bad from happening to you, then maybe his death wouldn't have been for nothing. Maybe I could keep one promise. The visiting room was quiet, except for the murmur of other conversations, other families dealing with other tragedies. You can't protect someone from everything, I said. I know that now. Some things are worse than danger, like losing your privacy, your autonomy, your ability to trust. I know. I don't know if I can forgive you. Thomas met my eyes then, and I saw acceptance there. Not hope, not expectation, just acceptance. I don't expect you to, he said. I don't deserve it, but I needed you to understand why. Not that it makes it okay. Just why. We sat in silence for a while. Finally, I said, Dad would be disappointed in you. Thomas nodded. He'd be disappointed in both of us. Me for what I did. You for... He stopped himself. For what? For not fighting harder to stay in my life. But that's not fair. You're right to cut me off. You should. I'm still your brother. And old habits. Toxic habits. Yeah. I stood to leave. Thomas stood too. Alex? I waited. I deleted all the footage. When the police came, I gave them everything, but then I deleted my copies, the backups, everything. I didn't want it existing anywhere in the world. I wanted you to know that. Okay. And I'm sorry. I know it doesn't mean much, but I'm so sorry. I left without responding. What was there to say? Sorry didn't undo the violation. Sorry didn't restore what had been taken. But as I drove home to Emma, to our new life in our new city, I found myself thinking about Dad, about the weight of a deathbed promise, about how grief can twist love into something unrecognizable. Emma asked if I'd seen Thomas. We were having dinner in our new kitchen, sunlight streaming through windows we'd checked 100 times for cameras. I'd told her about the thumb drive, the footage, the conversation. What are you going to do? She asked. Nothing. There's nothing to do. Are you going to forgive him? I thought about it, really thought about it. Maybe someday, I said. Not now, maybe not for years, but someday when it doesn't hurt so much to think about what he did. Maybe I'll be able to separate the person he was from the person he became. Maybe I'll be able to remember that he was my brother before he was my stalker. Emma reached across the table, took my hand. I don't think I can ever forgive him. He violated me in ways I can't even articulate, but I understand why you might. He's your family. So are you. Then choose me. Choose us. Choose the life we're building here, without surveillance, without paranoia, without someone watching our every move. I already have. And I had. The letters from Thomas stayed unopened in a box in the basement. I didn't visit him again, but sometimes, late at night when I couldn't sleep, I'd think about that footage of him and Dad, about promises made and broken, about the thin line between protection and possession. 2 years later, Thomas was released early for good behavior. He moved to the West Coast, changed his name, got a job doing something with computers that didn't involve surveillance. He sent one final letter, explaining his plans, promising to stay away. I believed him. Emma checked the smoke detectors again anyway. Life went on. We had a daughter, built careers, made new friends who knew nothing about our past. And slowly, very slowly, the weight of what Thomas had done began to lift. But it never fully disappeared. Sometimes I catch myself checking rooms when we enter them, looking for the telltale blink of a hidden camera, covering the laptop webcam, wondering if that smoke detector is really just a smoke detector. Emma says it's trauma. The therapist says it's hypervigilance, a normal response to violation. They're both right. What they don't say is that Thomas succeeded, in a way. He wanted to keep me safe. And now, I'm constantly alert, constantly watching, constantly aware of potential threats. He turned me into a version of him. That might be the worst part of all. 5 years after his release, I got a phone call from a Seattle number. Thomas's voice, older and tired. "Don't hang up," he said immediately. I almost did. My finger hovered over the button, but something stopped me. "What do you want?" "I'm dying," he said simply. "Cancer. They give me 6 months, maybe less." The words hung in the air. I felt a complicated surge of emotion, grief, anger, something that might have been relief. "I'm sorry," I said, "because what else do you say?" I wanted to apologize again, for real this time. Not just saying words, but meaning them. What I did was unforgivable. I know that. I've known it every day for the past 7 years. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve it. But I needed you to know that I understand what I took from you. Your privacy, your trust, your peace of mind. And I'm sorry. Okay. That's it? Just okay? What do you want me to say, Thomas? A long pause, then. I guess I wanted you to tell me it's okay. That you forgive me. That we can be brothers again before I die. I can't give you that. I know. Another silence. I could hear him breathing, ragged and uneven. But I can tell you this, I said. I understand why you did it. I don't condone it. I'll never condone it. But I understand. And maybe that's the closest thing to forgiveness I can offer. That's enough, Thomas whispered. That's more than enough. We talked for a few more minutes, about nothing important, the weather, Seattle, his treatment. Then he said goodbye, and I knew it was forever. Thomas? Yeah? I hope you find peace. You too, little brother. You too. He died 4 months later. I didn't attend the funeral. Emma said I should, that I'd regret it if I didn't, but I couldn't. Couldn't stand in front of his casket and pretend everything was okay. Couldn't listen to people talk about what a good man he was when I knew the truth. Instead, I took our daughter to the park. Pushed her on the swings, watched her laugh and play. This little person who would never know her uncle. This innocent life, unviolated and free. That night, I checked the smoke detectors one last time. Found nothing but batteries and circuitry. No hidden cameras, no secret surveillance. Thomas was gone. The watching had finally stopped. I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt hollow. 6 months after the funeral, a lawyer contacted me. Thomas had left me something in his will. It was a single item. His journal. Hundreds of pages documenting his descent into paranoia and obsession. The fear that started after our mother's sudden heart attack. The guilt after our father's death. The increasingly desperate attempts to control an uncontrollable world by controlling the people he loved. The final entry was dated the day before he called me. I thought surveillance was protection. I thought if I could see everything, I could prevent anything bad from happening. But I was wrong. Watching isn't protecting. It's the opposite of love. Real love requires trust, and trust requires letting go. I never learned that lesson until it was too late. Alex deserved better. Emma deserved better. Everyone I watched deserved better. I can't undo what I did. All I can do is hope that my death brings them peace I could never give them in life. If anyone reads this, learn from my mistakes. Don't let fear turn you into something you're not. Don't let the desire to protect someone become a prison for both of you. And most importantly, don't confuse control with care. Some things are meant to be trusted, not watched. I read the journal in one sitting, cried at parts, felt rage at others. But mostly, I felt sad. Sad for the brother I'd lost twice, once to obsession, once to death. Sad for the relationship we'd never repair. Sad for all the years we'd wasted. Emma found me on the couch at 2 a.m., the journal open on my lap. "Are you okay?" she asked. "I don't know." She sat beside me, didn't push for more. Just sat there, present and patient. "He was sick," I said finally. "Not just the cancer. In his mind. Long before the cameras. And I never saw it. Or maybe I saw it and ignored it. All those years of him being overprotective, obsessing over safety, needing to know where I was and what I was doing. It was all leading to this. And I let it happen." "You couldn't have stopped it," Emma said gently. "Mental illness doesn't work that way." "Maybe not. But I could have gotten him help. I could have seen the signs." Or maybe he would have hidden it anyway. Maybe this was always where he was headed, and nothing you did or didn't do would have changed it. We sat in silence for a while. "I think I forgive him," I said. Emma took my hand. "I'm glad. You need to, but I can't. Not yet. Maybe not ever." "That's okay." "Is it?" "Yeah, we get to process this differently. We get to have different relationships with what happened. That's allowed." She leaned her head on my shoulder. "I love you." "I love you too." The smoke detector in our living room blinks green now. Has for years. No red light. No hidden camera. No watchful eye. Our daughter is 7. She plays in the living room without fear, unaware of the ghosts that used to haunt this space. We've never told her about her uncle. Maybe we will someday. Maybe we won't. I still think about Thomas. Wonder what he'd think of the life we've built. Wonder if he'd be proud of the father I've become. Wonder if he's watching from somewhere, finally at peace. But mostly, I just live. I trust. I let go. Because that's what he never could do. And I refuse to make the same mistake. The smoke detector blinks green, and I don't look at it twice.